welcome back to Retro Wrestling Games Presents. I'm your host, Alex G, and with me this evening is Matt Riley. How you doing tonight, Matt?
I'm heated, man. I'm heated.
Heated indeed.
I've been watching the Punisher series, so I'm all amped up.
On this episode, we're going to take a look at Tag Team Match M.U.C.S.L.E. This game was released by Bandai for the NES on October, and it was released October 29th, 1985. It's based on the very popular manga and anime series called Kikino-men, or Muscle here in the United States. I think we all had the Muscle toys growing up. I know I did, and I didn't know really what to make of those toys when they came out because they're just like little, you know, they're very, very small. They're not posable. They're just little rubber dolls of these muscle guys, right? I think I got mine like in a bucket, and it had like a shitload of guys in there in various colors and what have you, and I didn't know what they were about. I know that they were wrestlers, and most of them looked like monsters or aliens. So, again, I never saw the anime or I never read the manga, so I wouldn't know what the fuck they were. I don't know if they even had a show here out in the States, although they probably did at some point. But I don't know. Was there a TV show that ran in the States?
Oh, it sounds like they did.
I want to say that they may have ported over. Although I'm not seeing anything that would suggest that here in the United States, although it started in 1979 and it ran through 1987, and there's a current series that's been out since 2011. But I don't think it necessarily ran in the States. We only got the toys. The toys were made by Bandai. So, but this particular game is I believe it's the earliest NES wrestling game that came out, and it came out in late 1985. Actually, the North American version came out before the Japanese version, which is weird to me because this is very much a Japanese property. You would assume that the Japanese version would have came out first.
I will tell you this. Just be sure when you look up muscle wrestling figures, watch out because, boy, there's a lot of videos of oiled up men wrestling each other in apartments. Oh, man, that's unpleasant. That's a bad Christmas gift.
I think we do have to give it a slight pass because it's so early in the Nintendo's run that this game came out. But let's be completely honest. When it comes to the graphics, it's not much better than an Atari game. Like, it looks that bad. It looks like, to me, like this game was like, they developed this game for an Atari, and they just ported it over to Nintendo without it releasing it on Atari. Although there's no evidence to suggest that, just based on the look of the game. And if you ever looked at any of the Atari wrestling games, they're very similar to this. And there's nothing much to this game. I mean, there's, you punch and you kick, but those don't really actually work all that well. So you find yourself just kind of springboarding off the ropes and kind of hoping that you hit your opponents. And you're kind of really, really hoping to get one of these energy balls so you can do a special maneuver. And that's it. There's nothing more to this game.
No.
It obviously is not as good as the Pro Wrestling NES game that would come out in '86, Tag Team Wrestling Tecmo, or even the WWF game that came out in 1989. This game is not good. It's not fun. It's graphically gross looking. The music is awful. Like, this is not a game that I suggest anyone to play. Now, they've come out with games since then, like on modern consoles. They're actually really good. They're more like fighters. I've seen a couple of videos on that. I actually will probably get a couple of those to review those as well. But for this first attempt here, not good whatsoever. The game is terrible. It's just, it is what it is. So, some of the characters that you have is Kikikumen, who is Muscle Man, who is your main character. You have my favorite wrestler, Terry Man, who is named after Terry Funk, and he actually does the spinning toe hold in the cartoon. So we'll talk about Terry Funk a little bit later. You have Ramen Man, like ramen noodle, I guess. You have Ramen Man. You have Buffalo Man. You have Wars Man. You have Ashuru Man. You have Brocken Jr. He's a Japanese only exclusive. Apparently, he's a Nazi because his finishing maneuver is a Nazi gas attack. But in the North American version, they have their own exclusive character named Geronimo, and his finisher is the Apache War Cry.
Oh boy, that's not good.
So you have it is in 1985, and this is a Japanese game, so you give them a slight pass on some of those. I guess the most relevant thing is that the Japanese version of the game, the Famicom version, has a gold edition, which comes on a gold cart, which is super, super rare, and it's sold for $18,200 So that's the current value
boy.
of that. The Japanese gold cart for this game, which is interesting to say the least. But I think overall, this is a game that you don't want to play. This is a game that it's an automatic skip for just about anyone. If you're a hardcore wrestling collector, obviously you got to pick it up. You got to play it. I collect wrestling video games, hence that's why I have it. Otherwise, there's not anywhere close where you consider it being a Nintendo classic by any stretch of the imagination.
Right.
So, Matt, did you ever have any of these muscle action figures?
I did. It was one of those gifts like at Christmas time where it would be like they were scrambling for a gift and they knew I liked wrestling. So I get like a bucket and was like, oh, these are pencil erasers? What are these? Because that's I thought they were. I was like, oh, that's kind of cool. Because when I was a kid, my mom got me these awesome, like, they're spaceship / transformer looking erasers.
Yeah.
They looked great, but they weren't erasers. They were just really crappy, non-bendable wrestling figures that made no sense at all. And
unless you're a kid in Japan, who probably really did enjoy these toys. Us in the States were probably like, what the fuck is this? And, they were probably like super cheap, to buy. So that's why everyone seemed to have them. Much like GoBots, that everyone seemed not to like, but always had for some reason because they were so cheap. And they probably went for like $3 or $4 for like a bucket of like 20 or something like that, or something ridiculous like that. Since then they've made SH Figure Arts has made like really cool action figures of these. Like I think they're about 6 inches, superposable like Black Series style figures of this property, and they're actually really, really good. Unfortunately, the little rubber dolls, and they keep on making more. I saw something by Super 7. They did a Masters of the Universe one that's like muscle inspired, like the same kind of like little rubbery pencil eraser looking ones for some reason. I don't know why. I don't know if there's a nostalgia factor for these. I do, collect Star Wars action figures. This is not something that I would go out of my way to collect personally. I started collecting Masters of the Universe action figures, and again, this is muscles. That's something I necessarily go out of my way to collect or purchase because never seen the cartoon, never read the comic book. So, I'm assuming the cartoon's probably good. It's it's anime, so I'm sure like visually it's fucking stunning and there's a great story attached to it, but. When it comes to muscle, it's like, ooh.
I was going to say, I just noticed that at the comic book store, He-Man Masters of the Universe making a big comeback.
Yeah. Especially with the new She-Ra series coming out, or actually is out now. I see a resurgence in Masters of the Universe properties. I got the new retro-styled action figures.
Not only that, there is Masters of the Universe versus Injustice.
Yes.
Which is just, I looked at it and I was like, why?
Well, they've always done stuff like that with Masters of the Universe. He-Man versus Superman, like in the 80s, that was a thing.
I don't remember that.
Yeah. He-Man and Superman have similar strength. Like, they both can throw moons and shit, so. Talking about your pre-crisis Superman that used to be able to throw the moon and stuff like that. But, what's funny to me, what stands out to me is that they have a character that's named after Terry Funk, and I think it goes to show you how revered Terry Funk is over in Japan, how he's a cultural icon in terms of professional wrestling.
Really?
Over there, where he's a big star here in the States, especially for our old school wrestling fans. In Japan, he's like Hogan level almost. Like he's he's probably right under like Baba and Inoki, both the Funks.
Wow.
In terms of wrestling cultural significance, the fact that they're naming characters and a wrestling related property after him shows that he's a big deal over there. He obviously. He had been in commercials over there. He had an album come out over there. It's funny, every kind of wrestling anime I've ever seen, someone always whips out the spinning toe hold for some reason as a tribute to Terry Funk. So when it comes to professional wrestling in Japan, Terry Funk and Dory Funk are well regarded over there to the point where they're considered native Japanese over there. And that's a big deal for Japanese fans to consider American as native Japanese. So. That's a big honor for the Funk family and how important they were to professional wrestling over in Japan, especially during the New Japan, All Japan War in the 70s and early 80s. And Terry Funk's a big deal here. I mean, he's Roadhouse, Over the Top. He was in Paradise Alley. He's been on like 2 or 3 different TV shows that didn't get picked up after the first season. He was on an episode of fucking Quantum Leap for no reason. Terry Funk, he was
It was a wrestling one, I think, wasn't it?
Which one? I think so. I think that was the episode of Quantum Leap that involving wrestling. He was the person that recommended Hulk Hogan to Sylvester Stallone for Rocky 3. Because him and Stallone are friends. So if it wasn't for Terry Funk, we may have never gotten Hulkamania as we know it today. So,
my God.
It's always kind of like these random kind of situations that, these, when you like WWF, you don't like WWF, you understand it's an institution. It's when people think professional wrestling, casuals, and people at large think professional wrestling, the first images they see is WWF. Right? I think everyone gets to understand. It's the jello of professional wrestling, everyone. I think everyone can say that with a clear conscience. But if it wasn't for a chance encounter between Cyndi Lauper and Lou Albano on the airplane, and Terry Funk recommending Hulk Hogan to Sylvester Stallone, wrestling as we know it could be vastly different. So it's kind of these random situations that come up out of nowhere. So, but Terry Funk's the man. I love Terry Funk. I think he's probably right for me. He's right under Savage in terms of my favorite wrestlers. And if I had to tell me, hey, listen, you can only watch one guy's matches for the rest of your life, and that's the only matches you can watch, it'd probably be Terry Funk. Just between the quality of matches and longevity that he had in professional wrestling, he reinvents himself every 10 years or something. It seemed like. Yeah. At first he was like the prototypical wrestler, and then he started getting a little bit more crazier, and then by the time he's feuding with Dusty in Florida, and you see him getting a little bit more manic, and you see the feud with him and Lawler and the empty arena match, and then he comes to the WWF. He comes to the WWF and has a pig. And he goes back to WCW and tries to murder Ric Flair with a plastic bag. And then he had that run in ECW, and then he comes back to the WWF, and then not for nothing, he had a match with Kevin Nash in WCW 2000. So it's like he's been around for fucking ever. Yeah. So that's Terry Funk, and if you're a hardcore wrestling fan, if you're a wrestling historian, you give Terry Funk his props. I think more casual fans need to see Terry Funk is awesome. And I wish he would get recognized a little bit more. All right, guys, so we are officially out of time. So Tag Team Match Muscle is a game you should not play.
Don't do it!
Don't do it. I did it for you. You're welcome. All right, guys. So for Matt Riley, I am Alex G. Have a good night.
Game over, man. It's game over. What the fuck are we going to do now? What are we going to do?